Hey, Ecourts here. Two sets were recently released in Japan, which will combine to become the Guardians Rising set coming to the US May 5th. There's a lot of great cards in these two sets that I'd like to cover today. So let's get started. I've divided this analysis into 3 categories, and I've chosen a top 3 for each one. These categories are new staples, cards that will have an immediate impact on the meta, and can find their way into a large variety of decks. Supporting Pokemon. These are new Pokemon that may benefit currently existing decks, create new variants, or add consistency to struggling strategies. Rogue cards. This category is filled with new and interesting cards that could form their own decks, potentially becoming meta, though it's hard to say until they're tested. Starting off our staples in 3rd place, we have Mallow, a very interesting supporter with an effect we haven't seen in a while. Playing Mallow allows you to search your deck for 2 cards, shuffle your deck, and place them on top. While this shares a familiar weakness with other card searches, such as being undone by an opponent's end, I feel this card will see play in a lot of decks that use Shaman, as it allows you to drop a card from your hand while manipulating your setup. Who needs to top deck when you have the powers of an Oracle? In 2nd place we have Field Blower. Now, this card hits a lot of targets in both standard and expanded. Use it to pick off floatstones from Keldeos and Garbodors, 2 very advantageous cards, whose usefulness relies on their tools. Now in expanded we already had Tool Remover, but because this card also hits stadiums, it's a lot more flexible, thus it's less likely to be a dead card in your hand. I've always believed in teching a Delinquent, but this may have me reconsider. Take away a Volcanion Skyfield, pick off its floatstone, and trap it with a Lysander? This can also be used to aid matchups by using it to remove your own Spirit Link, regaining access to something like a Tech Klefki after evolving your Mega Gardevoir, or removing a Fighting Fury Belt so you can attach a Floatstone in a sticky situation. Lots of options here, and that's what makes something a staple. Now, our first place goes to Tapu Lele, which should be unsurprising, considering it's pretty much just a better version of Jirachi, a card that already finds its way into a lot of expanded decks. The reason I felt this deserved the spot more than Field Blower is simply because this card is never dead. While Field Blower is unusable during item locks and when there just isn't a target, Tapu Lele will almost always be dropped in the types of decks that use it. Decks like Mega Gardevoir and Mega Rayquaza, who just want to fill up the bench to boost their attacks. It makes me wonder what competitive player John Kettler will do with his extra deck space, considering he was running 2 Lugia and 1 Jirachi at St. Louis Regionals. Oh right, I forgot to mention, this card also has Aero Ball. Tapu Lele literally takes the best parts of 2 competitively viable cards, including Lugia's 170 HP, nearly double that of Jirachi's. This is a great card, end of discussion. Oh, and the GX attack is okay. Might get used a couple times in the Decidueye mirror via Blend Energy. On to the supporting Pokemon. And I gotta say, when I first saw this card, I thought it was actually garbage. Seriously, look at these attack costs, and no way to ramp itself? Usually not a good sign. But I thought about it, and I feel like this card would be great to sort of store energy. And although it's not much, it can attack for 1 energy, but honestly, I could see this being a supporting Pokemon in either a Primal Kyogre or a Mega Gyarados deck. Kyogre has to place his energy on bench Pokemon, and Mega Gyarados will be trashing your deck, so you can use the new Water Patch to stock up your Wishy-Washy on the bench. It's very bulky for a basic, and nearly risk-free if you have a Manaphy out. While you could use its subpar secondary attack, the real supporting element here is the GX attack, which allows you to deal massive damage and spread Wishy-Washy's energy to any of your Pokemon. This could get a Gyarados or Kyogre set up immediately. I hope this sees play, I genuinely think it could be good. This next card's deck is just a bit more competitive than the last. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that Turtonator would fit well into a Volcanion deck. It would probably replace one of your non-EX Volcanions as a one-of, or maybe even try to squeeze 2 in. It's hard to say for sure, but I definitely think it has a place. It fills all of the roles that Volcanion is trying to go for. First off, it provides a body that benefits from Steam Up. This has 190 HP on a basic, 230 with a belt, and deals the same 20 damage as the Volcanion it would be replacing. But you're giving up the ability to attach energy, for a potential 80 extra damage. Is it worth the trade-off? I think so. He also has a secondary attack to finish off your opponent's Pokemon at the cost of 2 energy, which in this deck it could actually be beneficial. Honestly, in expanded format I think it's possible to run a deck without the Power Heater Volcanion. I'd have to playtest it a bit to be sure, but I think the deck could run off of Blacksmiths, Energy Retrievals, maybe a Starmie, oh, and Turtonator's GX attack, which allows you to attach 5 fire energy from your discard to your Pokemon. It's hard to say right now how this card will be adapted into Volcanion, if at all, but I think it has a chance. Who knows, the deck might end up being some weird variant with bursting balloons or something. Our gold supporter Pokemon is Tapu Koko. I'm actually the most excited for this card, just because I've always thought that this typing was very strong and competitive. It's super effective against a lot of threats, namely Mega Rayquaza and Yveltal. Now, this Pokemon will almost definitely be a one-of, unless some sort of weird Max Potion scoop-up type variant appears. I can see this card really solidifying the Raikou deck in the meta. Raikou, Electrode, and Jolteon are all quite strong in their own right, but Tapu Koko has that immediate board impact with its ability Arrow Trail. This can allow it to start hitting for 130 right when you drop it, which is not a small amount of damage. Considering the aforementioned cards that will be hit for weakness, this allows it to knock out either in just one attack, and for cards that don't have weakness, Tapu Koko can potentially OHKO those as well, with its GX attack, Tapu Thunder. There are a lot of turbo decks going around, giving this guy quite a few favorable matchups. I can see this card causing dramatic tempo swings and upsets. Just running this card threatens your opponent, making them hesitant to overcommit since the effect is straight out of the hand. This allows you to have more breathing room and set up yourself. Here's where things get complicated, the rogue section. Unfortunately, our third place is a bit lame. Trevenant has already had a presence in the meta, but the new Phantump is a grass type, so it allows the potential for Forest of Giant Plants. I mean, it has guaranteed confusion for a DCE, which is okay. It's really just about trying to get that Trevenant out on turn 1. But the real rogue card here is the new Trevenant, which deals damage times the number of trainer cards in your opponent's hand. This not only allows you to see your opponent's hand, it'll probably be hitting for fairly consistent damage, and it's just 1 DCE. The problem here is you can't really use Trevenant Break as it requires a Psychic Energy, unless you're just gonna run Psychic Energies in DCE, which I guess could work. But I just can't really see this replacing the more popular Trevenant in Expanded, especially since you're losing out on Dimension Valley by running Forest of Plants. Maybe it could be added as an alternative attacker once you force your opponent into keeping a lot of items in hand. I think the card is playable, it's hard to say how well it will do though. The fire weakness definitely won't be doing it any favors. This next card I was really hopeful for at first, but after giving it some more thought, I'd say it's good, but it just gets outpaced. This card is Alolan Ninetales GX. Its first attack is pretty good honestly. 50 damage to any Pokemon is noteworthy. However, 50 damage misses out on the magic 110 number for knocking out a bench Shaman, requiring it to hit 3 attacks. Sure, you could use other cards to move around counters or add damage, but my point is, it probably just won't be very consistent, especially since its second attack isn't really usable. It requires 2 water energy, yet you want to be using a DCE for the first attack. I guess you could use a DCE, attach 2 water energy while you're doing the 50, use the second attack and then go back to spreading 50s? Personally, I feel like this card isn't strong enough on its own. And while its GX attack gives it potential to swing the tempo, it's not quite bulky enough to knock out major threats. I do think this card has some potential though. I've been really thinking about pairing it with something like a Wobbuffet. This card could work, just maybe not in a water deck. Last but not least, because, well, they're in reverse order, so this is actually the best one. Lycanroc GX. Here's a real rogue card. Who doesn't want free Lysanders? Seriously, that ability is amazing. Especially since Lycanroc does hit the magic 110. I mean, Shaman resists fighting, but strong energy exists. 100, 110, around there is just a really good number for 2-hit knockouts. Also, since you need consistent evolutions anyways, you could use the new stadium to get Regirocks. You'd want to keep Rockruffs on your bench for evolution, and you could get some Carbanks on the bench as well. Could also use it to get down a Sun&Moon to restrict your opponent's bench, but be sure to use the super good GX attack first. Combined with Lycanroc's ability, you can use this GX attack to pick off Pokemon that are being set up, similar to Tapu Koko. Running this card will cause your opponent to be more careful with how they set up. I'd say you'd probably run 3 of these Lycanrocs, maybe one of the other Lycanroc GX for certain situations, 2 Carbinks with Break Evolutions for setting up, a Sudowoodo, possibly the Regirox. I don't think you need Shaman for this one, as the Stadium should get you what you need along with Ultra Balls and maybe Repeat Balls. Use the new Stretcher card to recycle Carbinks and Rockrufs into your deck, and then pull them with the Stadium. Yeah, I could see this one actually working. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. This set is going to be great. Hope you enjoyed my analysis, and until next time, this has been the Ecourts. Goodbye.